I'm Laura Vinroot Poole, and this is What We Wore.
Melissa Morris is the founder of luxury leather goods company Métier. Her unique way of coming to fashion through sculpture and business has created a completely innovative handbag. Thank you so much. You're so nice to do this, and I'm looking. You looks like you have sunshine in London.
No, it's just probably good lighting. No. Very gray.
Is it? I was in Paris last week, and when I left home, it was like 10 degrees, and when I got to Paris, it was like a vacation. It was 45. So
But it's been so nice there.
yeah, we'll see. I'm back in a few weeks, so we'll TBD.
Oh, I might be there too.
Yeah. We're probably seeing the collection, right?
Oh yeah, well you're gonna see. I know, but I'm normally not there for those meetings. But I think I'm shooting that week in Paris
Oh.
as well. So we have to meet in person. Maybe we can
I
go.
would love it. I would love it. And we've never met. And Melissa, I was trying to think where we even found out about the collection, and I'm thinking it was from a friend of yours in Brentwood. Is that correct, or how did it?
Yeah, it will be through. I mean, she's really now become a really dear friend, but she is a client that I met actually just by total coincidence. I happened to be in the shop one day, and she came in, and her name's Liza. So I think she's, quite close with the team there.
And
Yeah,
the stores, the shops in London, and she just happened upon it and was buying things and said, "This is the best thing I've ever seen."
well, apparently her husband was in London doing some work and was flying home and read, I didn't know, this was sort of, we were like 6 months old at that time. And I guess there was something in British Airways magazine about this backpack that we have on the men's side. And he ripped it out of the magazine and delivered it to her and was like, I need this bag. And I guess then as a family, a few weeks later, they were coming. Oh no. So then she ordered it online and I saw her name, and I'm a big fan of her husband's work. And so I knew who it was and we got very excited and blah, blah, blah. And then anyway, fast forward 6 months later or so, my store manager was off sick. And again, the brand at this point was 1 year, less than 1 year old. We had 4 employees. So store managers off sick, founders coming in for the day. And so I was in the shop, and all of a sudden I look up and they all walk in as a family, and he had his backpack, and he said,
His name's Conan O'Brien, and the only reason I say that is because he's also like 6'7", right?
yeah, he's really
And pretty
tall.
memorable looking.
Yeah. And he said, hi, you don't know me. We're from America. And his family like sort of waved around him. They're all really funny, actually. And he said, I got this backpack and I've nominated myself for the winner of the Best Purchase of the Year award. So we had to come to the home of my backpack to see where it was from. And it was just an incredible coincidence that I was there. And
Aw,
they
that's so sweet and so unusual.
Yeah, so nice. And they've just become really good friends. And especially she's become also just a confidant and just an incredible, they're incredible. And I can't say enough, but I have to be honest that it's not just me saying it. My clients are the best. Like I
Yeah.
really have the nicest, most interesting people that are doing the most mind-blowing things, and yet they're so humble, interested, impressed by what I do. I think they must be crazy in comparison, but it is that it does, the brand really attracts really fascinating people that are sort of charting their own paths in life. And I feel really lucky because I get really inspired by them.
Well, I do think like attracts like.
Yeah.
But Melissa, tell me where you're from.
So originally I'm from Philadelphia, or just outside. It's sort of a small suburb called the Main Line, which is just right outside of Philadelphia. My dad's family is from New York, and my mom's family is from the main line as well. My parents met studying at the University of Pennsylvania and fell in love and decided to stay in Pennsylvania, which is where I was raised.
And what was it like what did you love about growing up and outside of Philadelphia? Well, with access to Philadelphia, really, and
Yeah,
outside of it.
I mean, that was it. It was because my dad worked in Center City, but my mom had a very serious rule that 6:30 every night without fail, we were having family dinner, sat down at the table, me and my sister and my parents, and then my grandmother as well. So, and that was a thing. And even if my dad had to work after, we were home. So I think having a family home that was so in proximity to Center City was really important. But it's a great city to grow up in, even more so now. I haven't, I left when I was 18, so it's been more years than I care to admit. But it's the city itself is very much supportive of art, sports, education, outdoors, family life. So it really is a really nice city to grow up in. But in specific, I think I got very, very, very lucky with the family that I came from, and what they valued, which was exactly the sorts of things like family dinner, and every summer we would go somewhere different as a family, 2 weeks with like always us, always somewhere different, nothing fancy, just with this idea that you're always going to experience some different culture, different food, different way of speaking, being, and finding not only appreciation but such inspiration from that. That was sort of inherent to how I was brought up.
Where you have siblings, where are you in birth order?
I'm the youngest.
Oh,
And
that's
we're,
funny.
and we're different. I mean, we're typical older, younger sibling. My sister is um quieter, and yeah, I'm sort of the loud one that never really did what I was told.
So, and how would you describe yourself as a child in 3 words?
Oh, gosh. Um, rebellious, inquisitive, loving.
Oh, I love that. I read that you grew up in a STEM-oriented household. How did that philosophy play out in your family?
Yeah, I mean so my mom was a mathematician, and she actually was a computer programmer, one of the first female computer
Wow.
programmers. It was actually cool. There was this exhibit in the Tate here in London. My mom came to visit me a few weeks ago, and we went, and it's called Electric Dreams, and it's about the history of computers and these giant computer systems and art installations inspired by them, but showing all of the old programming and the old language that she knew some of it. It was so wild. But between that and my grandmother was a physicist in World War II.
Wow.
And my dad also was, he sadly passed away when I was a teenager, but he, yeah, it was pretty, he was a genius. So I grew up in a very intellectual household but they made it really relatable and fun through puzzles and games. And, you know, I ended up getting quizzed on my homework most nights, but I ended up liking it. I had like a blackboard in my room that was the shape of a dog with my name on the tail that I would do my homework on. And they made it fun, and they made learning interesting and something that you were really proud of. And I really enjoyed, although I was not, ironically, though I love math, horrible at science. I still can't.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. It's
Yeah.
not genetic.
No.
So tell me about style. Who influenced your style growing up?
So my mom's mom, her name's Eleanor, or was Eleanor, and she was the most, yeah, she was everything to me. So because my grandfather passed away when relatively early, and they lived so close to where we grew up, she was over every single night with us.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, so she was like a second mom, really. And she originally was from Manhattan, and got set up on a blind date with my grandfather, and they fell in love and married, and so she relocated to Philadelphia. But she just, yeah, she had such an elegant style. It was very classic, almost Katharine Hepburn, a little bit of Jackie O. Yeah, she just always looked totally immaculate, and everything in a really timeless, perfected way of the and just so authentically stylish. And she also loved to travel the world. She and my grandfather were so interested in exploring all around, you know, not the typical places. And she'd pick up little pieces of jewelry or things and incorporate them into these like incredibly classic, beautifully tailored outfits that it was just, yeah, it was just so flawless.
And then did you start to study style and fashion independently, or was that a connection for you with Eleanor?
I think that I always loved style. I mean, I was, you know, always loved reading fashion magazines. Growing up, I think I was always really interested in it. I somehow always gravitated towards it as a way to express myself, sort of testing a little bit who I was and where I fit in and trying to find my own identity. Um,
And was your mom, the mathematician, supportive of that?
yeah, yeah. That, I mean, I'm really lucky. My parents sort of said, you can be anything you want if you try hard and you work hard. And they were so supportive of whoever my sister and I wanted to, you know, yeah, they were completely supportive of our individuality.
And so how did you find your way to sculpture?
So, yeah, so I always loved design, and sort of the way my grandmother would explain, what real design is and what real consideration is behind something, and the thought around, doing something with care. And I think that led me into a real obsession with all aspects of design, but I fell in love with interior design and sculptures, and specifically chairs, because I loved how the way a chair is designed. It's a beautiful art piece, it's a sculpture, but it's also for function. And the way you sit in it is, and sort of the shape of the chair is based on what you're doing. So if you're going to relax, or you're going to eat or converse or work, or sleep, the chair should be shaped in different ways, and sort of that sculptural consideration should be there. So I fell just completely in love with the idea of sculpture, and just started.
And Melissa, is that industrial design? I mean, is that what that is chair design industrial design, or is it?
It was part of the school. It was just something
Oh, wow.
in visual arts, in sculpture.
Wow.
It's just sort of, I guess, yeah, I think there's such a strong hybrid between architecture and interior design and functional design, and the art around it.
And so you went to Emory in Atlanta and studied art specifically. Did you think you were going to be an artist?
Yeah, I double majored. I studied sculpture and I studied business. So I guess some of the math,
The only artist with a business background.
I know.
Thank you. Good job. You did it.
Here I am. I think it's probably, I mean, I think it's all actually two sides of the same coin. I like rational thought, and I think that's why I like drawing lines, and I like to color inside them.
Mm.
And if my color sort of goes out of the line, I look and see, do I need to redraw that line, or because the color should go out in that direction, or should I bring the color back in? But I like having a reason for what I'm doing. And then I put the reason aside and then allow myself to sort of freely express what that is. And then I see where the two match up and don't, and use them as points to sort of inform where they shape from there. So I think that's the way I approached, why I loved sort of more functional design, like, chairs as a sculpture. Didn't really like the idea of something that I felt was superfluous. I wanted it to have rational reason. And I think that's also why I like numbers as well, and sort of the creativity around them of what I'm constantly teaching my team, which they look shocked at me how the designer is like getting so excited in the weekly meetings. But, um, I like seeing numbers. I like seeing stats because they're able to give you ideas. I actually walk out with so many ideas of different things I wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And I guess that's why the collections are designed so much with my clients in mind, because I can really understand what they need and what they would want and think about things specifically for them. And it's not something necessarily so esoteric.
And so, how did sculpture and business turn into fashion? How did you seg into wanting to work in the fashion industry?
That was sort of, I found one thing I wanted to do after school, which was mostly about where I wanted to go, which was San Francisco. And I found one thing that I wanted to do. Luckily, I had to apply pretty early to get into it, and I got into it, and that was what I did. But I went so the Gap at that time Gap in San Francisco had the most incredible executive training program. It was 9 months long, and every 3 months you rotate to a different part of the company. And there's about 20 of us in a class accepted, and half of the time you're shadowing executives, and half of the time you're in a classroom being taught by executives. So everything from presentation skills to working on it as a team to, crafting an assortment plan. And yeah, I just got such a crash course in how a fashion company should work. And it really is exactly that way of having clear structure and goals of how to keep a business alive and growing, but how not to stifle that with these goals and then not allow creativity and free thinking to flow.
Tell me about the 20 people in your class. What were their backgrounds? Had they all come from art, or were they all interested in fashion? And was the point of the program all for you to fold into the Gap, I guess?
Yeah.
Ultimately, right.
Yeah, I think a lot are, I mean, I don't know how many are still at the Gap, but a lot are sort of running a lot of similar companies. So,
But what were their backgrounds? Were they mostly art majors, or what was?
No, I would think most of them were business majors. I can't totally remember. I'm not as young as it's been a minute. Um, but no, I was one of the only true art majors.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it was because it really was more of yeah, it was probably a lot of marketing and psychology and customer sort of thinking.
So you finished the program, and were you gonna maybe stay with the Gap, or were you definitely on your way out and into fashion?
I loved it, and I think I left probably purely because I'm really inquisitive and I'm interested in what's out there and wanting to see everything and experience everything. And there's sort of this insatiable amount of questions I have and wanting to experience things. And I think that's the only reason that I left. Looking back, other than Métier, it was my favorite place I've ever worked.
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah, it was, I'm so happy to see that they're finding their way again. It's a great company and had great values, and the understanding of how to build a business and a creative business, because I think that's the struggle where a lot of brands and companies struggle with is how can you take something that's inherently creative and shouldn't be reined in, but the fact is that we have bills to pay and salaries to pay and a real responsibility, and that responsibility for my team, my suppliers, their families. I mean, that's really heavy. And I think it's so critical that you are allowing creativity to flourish and the room for ideas to come. but it is also a real business too. And so you have to be able to set parameters and be able to have points of your process to be able to take those parameters and feedback in and allow it is allowing yourself to have lines drawn for you or with you, and then you draw the color inside them. And that it can't be every minute you're constantly drawing a line and someone's over me and it's like, Matt, you went colored out of the line. Like I need that. But like you have these clear points where you're reviewing how that comes together. And I think I learned that so well at the Gap, how how this is supposed to work. And I think that's why I hope what I'm doing well here with the team at Métier and what we're doing as a business here is really working cross-functionally and understanding how, whose inputs are when and how we all have to work together as a team, and how to really like data and not, I always tell the team, you could cook the books in any way you want. You could say, oh, that had 100% sell through, but you sold two because you bought two. Versus you had a 10% sell through because you've bought 1,000, but you sold 100, which is better, the 100 or the two. Clearly, the 100 is better, but you just bought too much. So I'm constantly
Trust me. Yeah, I have a buying team.
I'm to the fire, I think, probably.
Yeah.
So it's sort of being able to enjoy data and question it and look at it as a way to help shape what you're doing and allow you to think outside of the box of how to use it rather than it feeling oppressive or confusing. And I think probably especially in the last 15 years, what I experienced, which was a real shift, because when I came into the industry, e-commerce was not a thing.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know if you would agree, but there was such a notable shift in the way people were operating their companies when e-commerce came in, because it was almost like you got all of this information, but didn't know how to use it. And it can easily steer you in the wrong direction.
Well, it's also all this information of people you don't really know. I mean, I think when we used to work with Farfetch, and they would say, this is so amazing for you because you're selling things to people all over the world. And I'm like, well, it's not that amazing for me because I have no idea who they are and what they want and why they wanted it and how they're going to use it. And, there's really no data. You just told me you sold something to somebody in Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Like, great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so interesting.
That was exactly why. I mean, it was, so I launched the brand with a store in London.
Oh, wow. Okay, wait. Can we go back 1 minute?
Yeah.
So after the Gap, you came to New York and you worked for several brands, Helmut Lang, Belstaff, Armani, and always in New York? Were you always in New York?
Yeah, always in New York.
And always in production or always, where? Okay.
No, design and merchandising.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I loved merchandising, actually. It's probably for like the pinnacle.
You're really good at it. I mean, I think that's one of the best things about your brand, actually. Well, many, but you do that so well. Which is really interesting to think back about your Gap experience, I think, actually, like when you really look back, that probably is where you learn the fundamentals of that.
1,000%. I mean, and if you walk into any Mickey Drexler run company,
yeah, I was going to ask that too. I was going to say, do you think that I know you're younger than I am, but so I know you're after the Mickey era, but do you think that a lot of the things that he set into place were still there when you got there?
Oh yeah, I'm probably not as young as you think. It was just after. But yeah, no, for sure. I without a doubt. I do. It makes sense because it's sort of buying is, how I was taught, a really creative process. I remember one of the first lessons at Gap, they said, right, so you're in your department or your business has sold, it's summer or it's whatever time, springtime, and you've just sold a ton of denim jackets that year, and you're looking back now, it's a year later, and you realize the year before you sold a ton of denim jackets. So what do you do? And someone said, I buy more denim jackets. And they said, wrong. What is that of this year? And
Right.
so like the fisherman's cardigan or whatever it is, it's what does that do? That denim jacket is
Right.
that layering piece that you can wear inside and outside. And it's sort of, it's not like you're wearing a coat, but it is that third piece. And what
Yeah.
is and that of this year? And I think that sort of creative thinking has been lost, or maybe,
Well,
yeah.
it's funny because you would always, especially in these big appointments, I mean, been doing this almost 30 years. So this is many years ago, but thinking about going into, say, a Saint Laurent appointment, and it was my buying team, which was me and one other person. And then you'd walk in with Neiman Marcus, and there would be 15 people. And they'd have Excel spreadsheets, and they'd say, so we sold 4732X9, so we're going to need that again, and we sold it in red, let's do it in red again. And like that was the whole appointment. There was zero joy. It was just a completely different thing, and it was always the saddest thing. But it's weird because it's like buying is a really hard thing to teach. I mean, innate taste, but and then numbers and understanding that. But there's something really big in between that can't be taught.
It is a really creative field. It's intuition. It's knowing your customer, knowing people, having an idea that, you know, they're going to love something before they realize that they love it. Yeah, it is. There is a certain amount that really can't be taught, which is why, yeah, it is an art.
So it's interesting. So around this time, you said at its core, I believe design should either solve a problem or improve an experience. And was this around the time when you found that you weren't able to find the bag you wanted, or were these other jobs like boring you? Like what was happening then, and how did this push you towards?
I think there was, at the, at this point, e-commerce, of course, was getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and social media was getting bigger and bigger, and not like anything it is today, but it was enough that I felt that what was unique about a brand and unique about the sorts of products we were putting out. We didn't have time to do them well because seasons were getting faster and faster and faster. And even if designs were successful, we needed to make different ones, this time with a fringe or some novelty, or it felt like an endless cycle, and not in a good way that you felt like you were improving on what you're doing. It just felt like you were just throwing stuff at a wall, and that feel good. And I think also ultimately what I loved about why I fell in love with the industry was it sounds cheesy, but it's true. It's the teamwork and how everyone works together. And I think that understanding of what all the different departments are meant to do and how they're meant to work together was also getting lost in the shuffle as well. I found a lot of politics. I struggled and I wasn't happy.
And so tell me, so how did it go? How did this go down? I mean, what was your first bag? How did that all happen?
So that basically, so I wanted to leave my job, and I wanted to go to culinary school and do something different and just try something, have a cafe. And I had a whole vision for what this would be and have a very different life, I guess. But so I left my job and I traveled a bit, and I realized that sort of as I was traveling, I had my bag, but then a mini bag inside that was like a little pouch that I thought would organize my passport and all of these other things, and how clever that would be. And I realized that became a mini bottomless pit inside of a bottomless pit. And it sort of reminded me of when I would go to, when I was traveling to the work, every day, it's sort of this notion of travel, and how I would always be on the subway floor panicking, looking for my subway, missing the train and then missing my meeting or whatever, and how many other women I saw, and we all had the same giant bag,
With
and
the
everyone was
satellite
doing
bag inside of it.
with a satellite bag and then your shoes spilling out. And it was just a disaster. And so I realized that sort of when I was actually traveling, that there was this correlation between the way we travel in the modern sense and how the things we need with us, you know, chargers and whatever, all the things that you need with us, it's a lot more complex than when my grandmother
Yeah.
was going away. They could have a little handbag. It's really was really, really different. And, you know, I realized that the core of what handbag design was sort of made around the time that, you know, you had the Kelly bag that was made, or even the Birkin was made
It's
as a
huge.
travel
Yeah,
bag.
huge.
It was a bag because she wanted something for traveling, which now that would be a tiny thing for traveling. We
Right.
couldn't deal with it. Sort of that consideration to what we actually need didn't
And
evolve with the time.
And also to remember too that whether living in the suburbs is different than living in New York. I mean, I always say to the salespeople in New York when they're saying this is our number one bag, and I'm like, well, bags for you people are your apartments. Like we have cars. Like these girls our women are in their car the whole day going to carpool and picking. So it's a different need. I mean, but generally the idea of really understanding what people's needs are is unusual, I think. Like it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like people really give a lot of thought to that.
Yeah. And, you know, and it becomes really fun too. You know, you sort of, um, it was such a challenge to try to figure out how to create something that was so functional and technical, but still so elegant and beautiful. Because I like sports. I do a lot of yoga and I like to rock climb and I've gotten into surfing, but I'm not sporty. I'm not utilitarian in the way than my aesthetic. I would say it's very similar to my grandmother's, I would hope,
Yeah.
but it's much more suited to the 21st century. It's more relaxed. I have a messy bun. Her bun would have been perfect. There was, I think a bit of a difference there. And so the trick was how to create something that was adapted for the way that we live today and also transferable from going to city life to suburban life to world apart overseas and everywhere in between and allowing yourself to move as seamlessly as possible. And so, the first thing was to figure out how to solve this sort of mini satellite bag and to make it organized. So that was the stowaway, which was one of my first designs, which is the little, yeah.
I have 3 of them.
Yay!
It's the best bag. It's the best bag. Just more than any. I mean, all the things beautifully made, but really, it's just so thoughtful.
Thank you.
And every day,
Yeah.
and that's the thing that you realize, I think, when you use your bags. And I never do this in podcasts, but like, I think I do think that is the genius of them, is that you have thought about every single thing. And so you realize how much time you spend in your bags trying to find your things or doing things. And every time I'm doing any of the things, I'm like, thank you so much, Melissa. This is so thoughtful. This is so thoughtful. But nobody, I don't know any other bag I've ever had in my life that I've felt that way about.
Thank you. No, that means a lot. Thank you very much.
Well, I interrupted you. So that was the stowaway bag was your first bag. And so how many did you produce? And what did you do with them?
Well, so first I needed the stowaway, and then I made the private eye, which was the sort of the everyday bag to go to work with, which had this clipped in. But then when I was done work, I could put it in the coat check, take this out, and go have my drink, have a martini, and that was sort of the beginning of what I wanted to do. And then I wanted to create one bag for a different need in life, in sort of your journey, and having the stowaway being able to clip between it so that you would never have to look for your essentials and it would always be easy. And also I didn't like the idea, we don't do markdowns, we don't do seasons. I like to tell my customers that I like my customers to know that the price that they're paying is the best price that we can give. It's not like you need to wait for it to go on sale. This is, what is value versus expensive? It's good value for money. It's an expensive product and it's an investment, but you can know that it is made with such care and quality. And that was really important to me. And so I think in doing that, I needed to have one perfect product for every journey. And that was the way I sort of thought about it. And then the trick was, okay, I know that whenever I'm heading to the passport control, I like everyone around me is freaking out that they've left their passport on the plane, they've lost it. Oh my God. Okay, well, actually, we have a hidden magnet pocket at the top of a seam. I split a seam so you can't see from the outside. I didn't want it to look utilitarian. And also, I wanted it to be a hidden pocket, but you just slip your hand in and you get your passport and you go. And so, sort of having so much fun thinking through all of the ways you're moving through your day and how to make that as easy as possible, because that is luxury.
Yeah.
Knowing where your things are and not having that stress is a luxury. You wouldn't buy a luxury car if it didn't drive.
Right. And so Melissa, how did you sell it? I mean, so you made these things and then what?
Yeah, so I was adamant that we launch with a store. Going back to your point around data, I felt that if we couldn't understand who our clients were and meet them and explain to them and see their questions around the concept. I mean, we're the first new luxury leather goods brand. There's been many revitalized heritage brands or leather goods brands that come off the back of a clothing brand, but like a real standalone luxury leather goods brand in the space, I knew it was a risk. And, at the time, I got asked, well, why don't we just take over one of the sleeping heritage brands, and then at least you have the name and and all of this. And I said, but then I'm stuck with their heritage. And I actually do something of today. It should be really, heritage and value of a luxury value of what luxury is, but very much a modern sensibility. And so I needed a store to do that, which seemed crazy, especially as we signed the lease on the day of the Brexit vote.
Right.
And e-commerce was booming. Every industry report said retail's dead, blah, blah, blah. But we did it, and it was the best thing we've ever done. And with your stores, why. Because if you put proper attention and proper care for your clients, and A, you learn so much, but B, you establish a connection in the universe that explains everything that you stand for without having to speak.
That's so beautiful. I want you to remind me of that sometimes during the year when I'm stressing out. Talk to me a little bit about the process of perfecting the product and the leather. I mean, was that something that did you have bags? I mean, were you a bag person? I'm not really a bag person until I met you. But so how did you learn? Because I have a friend who used to work with you who was actually the first person who told me all of the details that go into each piece and how many times the edges are painted and and by all the people that do Hermes, and I'm probably not supposed to say that, but like, how did you know all of the intricacies of that?
Well, I didn't. I got really lucky. I think you're really, and you will know this, because you have had such an iconic, successful company, that it's a team sport, and I come to the table with some real strengths, but it really is such a team. And so I knew right away I needed to find someone who would be as passionate as I was about what luxury design and craftsmanship could be, and was crazy enough to do something like this. And so I found the first person that I was able to hire. His name is Luca Flavi. He's still with me. We're just hitting on our 10-year anniversary in a few months, but he was leading all of the product development and production at a company called Bali. And he comes from his father had a leather goods factory. He sort of comes from a multi-generational background and is just so passionate about the craft. And I think I had heard about him and knew how passionate he was. What I didn't realize was how concerned he was himself about where the industry was going in some ways of mass production and outsourcing production and yeah, the speed of production and all of the similar things he was also concerned about and was really excited to leave. Not to say it was a comfortable job, and it was, but he had a team of 40 and he was, leading an entire team of a really big company to come be a team of two. Two of us basically spent 3 years, first of all, 6 months of driving around Italy, trying to find and beg people to work with us and take a chance on us. And luckily, we were able to convince slowly people to believe in us. And then we started developing all of our materials. And we took 3 years to develop our unique method of crafting because to have something be so functional, there's a reason why a lot of functional products are made from very functional materials and have a lot of seams and a lot of pockets and a lot of things. It's because you have to sort of have a lot of places to sew and keep things strong and yeah, to make something that looks seamless and lightweight, but on the inside it's like this whole world is really tricky. And it took us 3 years to figure out how to make something as lightweight and seamless and effortless as possible, but lasting as possible. And luckily, he is maybe even more of a perfectionist than me, which is crazy. And yeah, we just challenge each other all the time to do better.
And then at what point did you know that you were going to be successful?
Still waiting for that minute.
I know.
Any minute now.
Let me know. What's been the most difficult part of your journey over the past 10 years?
I launched in 2017, and then and we went through Brexit shortly after, and then COVID shortly after that. So I think those are just normal macroeconomic things that were really challenging and scary. I think I'd say the hardest part has been learning to figure out how to teach people and teach your team and coach your team and grow with them and allow the growth to happen and let go, but in the right amounts. You can't just let go, but you can't stay too much on. And sort of, I think no one teaches you how to be a good manager.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of ideas around how teams are meant to work together. And as you say, some of these things just can't be taught.
Mm-hmm. And
Sometimes
some of them
forget.
take many, many years. And you're sort of like, I hate to tell you this, but it's probably going to take you 10 years to learn this. But I would never tell you that because you wouldn't stay. Like, you'd be like, nope.
Right. And then sometimes you take it for granted because it's so inherent to you. You don't realize that it's not to others. And of course, as well, my team, we're based in London, but we're very multicultural in the office. And so there's also adapting to all the different cultures. And, I think people is always the most important and always the most challenging to get right. And I think that has been something I'm really proud of when I come into the office to, now I have the best team. They're thriving. And I think the way we're working together, there's also a sort of, we needed to get to be a big enough team to also be able to work in the way that I would want to, because it's all great to talk about all of these processes. But if you're just trying to get by because you're doing so many things, it's like, okay, stop with the process. I just need to get this submitted sort of thing. And I think that has been sort of the growth process has been important to stay really self-aware and self-critical.
How have you evolved as a person through your entrepreneurial journey?
A lot.
Yeah, it's really humbling, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. I think I've grown up a lot too. I started it. I started working on it really 11 or 12 years ago. And so I was about 30 years old then. And So I think I grew up a lot as a person. I also have now lived in between before in Berlin and now in London, but I travel a lot. And so I think I've gotten so much exposure culturally. But yeah, I don't sweat the small stuff. I mean, I definitely always grew up, and my mom would say I was the daughter who wore her heart on her sleeve, and everyone knew that whatever I was feeling, you could feel, and that still is the truth. I can't hide much, but I've learned not to get so freaked out about things or emotional about things, or I've learned to stay calm. I've gotten really into meditation and yoga, and I've sort of learned that, yeah, staying calm and practical and applying rational thought, yeah, I think I've grown up a lot.
Was your grandmother alive to see you start Métier, Eleanor?
No,
What,
she would be
I
so,
was going to say she would be so proud, wouldn't she?
yeah, I think so. Uh, yeah, she was just brilliant.
Lucky to have, I mean, really lucky to have a grandmother like that and to have her in your life so day to day, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And she was, my mom, I'm so close with. And I'm really lucky because both of them are so incredible and such different characters. And my sister is also a different character, as am I. Like the four of us are all so different. Um, and that's really nice as well.
Yeah. Your
Yeah,
dad would have been proud too.
I hope so.
One more important question. What did you wear to prom on the main line in Philadelphia?
Oh, what did I wear? I think I wore, I, I went to a lot of proms.
I love those answers. Which one?
It's like going through my head. I'm like, which one? I wore a Nicole Miller gown, a
Nice.
gown by Nicole Miller. It was, and now it would actually, now that the 90s are so cool again, now it would be cool. It's like this black, long gown with really pretty little floral embroidery, but like not so much, just a little bit, and hot pink velvet straps.
No. Ooh, how pretty.
And a sweetheart neckline. Yeah, it was really pretty.
That sounds really pretty. And shoes, black.
I think it was straight across, actually. Yeah.
That sounds really, really pretty. And hair and shoes, jewelry, any
Uh,
memory? Handbag.
down. Yeah, exactly. No handbag. There was no for
It
Métier.
didn't exist. That's a good one. All right. I love that.
Yeah.
One more question, though. I want to go back to the three words that you used to describe yourself: rebellious, inquisitive, and loving. Do you think those three still describe you today?
To a T.
Aw, I love that so much. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. It's so nice to meet you. Have been a fan of what you've done for so long, and I think the art of buying in stores, and I think reminding that there's such a place. We need multi-brands, we
Yeah.
need boutiques, we need points of view, and having also to see what I do brought into your point of view and is really inspiring for me. So I'm really, really grateful.
Thank you. And grateful to you for creating something so beautiful that I use every day.
I'm so happy.